2 years ago, Ryan thought he had met the love of his life. Emily was captivating, quick-witted, and seemed to connect with him on a level he had never experienced before. They met at a rooftop party in Austin, Texas, hosted by mutual friends. The chemistry was immediate, and within a year, they were married. Ryan, now 31, worked as a freelance web developer. His job gave him the freedom to set his own hours, allowing him to pursue his passion for photography and enjoy a flexible lifestyle. Emily, 29, was a marketing executive at a rapidly growing tech company. Her ambition and drive made her a rising star in her field. At first glance, their life seemed perfect. They lived in a charming loft apartment overlooking Lady Bird Lake, with plans to buy a house in the suburbs once Emily secured her next promotion. They spent their evenings dreaming about the future, vacations abroad, building a family, and renovating their dream home. But as Emily's career soared, the dynamics in their relationship started to shift. Emily began taking on bigger projects, which meant longer hours and frequent networking events. Ryan admired her determination but couldn't ignore the growing distance between them. At first, he chalked it up to her passion for work. "She's just focused," he reassured himself. But as the late nights became more frequent, Ryan felt an ache of loneliness that he struggled to suppress. Their arguments started small, disagreements over dinner plans or what to watch on TV, but grew into regular clashes about Emily's absence and her growing irritation with Ryan's laid-back career. Emily's comments stung in ways she probably didn't realize. She'd joke about Ryan working in pajamas, or how her job was more serious. Ryan laughed them off, but her words lingered. One Friday evening, Ryan decided to surprise Emily. He spent hours preparing her favorite meal, complete with candles and soft jazz playing in the background. When she walked in, her eyes barely registered the setup. "Sorry, babe, I can't stay," she said, grabbing her purse. "There's a team dinner at Copper Barrel. It's kind of important." Ryan blinked, his heart sinking. "You can't skip just this once. I thought we could have a nice night in." Emily sighed, glancing at her watch. "Ryan, you know how crucial this is for me. We'll do something tomorrow, okay?" She kissed him on the cheek and walked out, leaving Ryan staring at the untouched food. As the weeks passed, the gaps in their relationship widened. One morning, while cleaning out Emily's car before taking it to the shop, Ryan discovered something tucked under the passenger seat, a man's cologne bottle. His heart raced. He knew Emily didn't wear cologne. Questions flooded his mind, but instead of confronting her, he placed the bottle back and decided to observe her more carefully. That evening, Ryan couldn't shake the unease from finding the cologne. He tried to convince himself it might belong to a colleague or even have been left behind by mistake. Still, the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Emily came home late again, her demeanor calm and collected as though nothing was wrong. Ryan watched her closely, studying her movements and tone. She casually mentioned that her team dinner at Copper Barrel had been productive and that her boss was impressed with her pitch. "That's great," Ryan said, trying to sound supportive, though his mind was elsewhere. For the next few days, Ryan found himself overanalyzing everything: her phone calls, her unexplained late nights, even her perfume. Something wasn't adding up, but he didn't have proof, and the idea of accusing her without it felt like a betrayal of their trust. One night, as Emily prepared for another networking event, Ryan decided to test the waters. "You've been out a lot lately," he said, keeping his tone neutral. Emily glanced at him in the mirror while fixing her makeup. "It's part of the job, Ryan. You know that." "Yeah, I get it," he said, hesitating. "But don't you think we've been distant? Like we don't spend as much time together anymore?" Emily paused, her expression hard to read. "It's just a busy season. Once things settle down, we'll have more time. I promise." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. After she left, Ryan sat alone in their apartment, staring at his laptop but unable to focus on work. He finally gave in to his curiosity and opened a tracking app he had installed on his old phone, a backup device he rarely used. Earlier that week, he'd hidden the phone in Emily's car, nestled beneath the passenger seat. The app showed her location at Copper Barrel, just as she'd said. But an hour later, the dot moved. Ryan frowned as it stopped at a boutique hotel downtown. His heart pounded as he grabbed his keys. He wasn't sure what he'd find, but he couldn't ignore it any longer. When he arrived, Ryan parked across the street, his hands gripping the steering wheel. He stared at the hotel entrance, trying to summon the courage to go inside. As he sat there, he saw her, Emily, walking out hand in hand with a man he didn't recognize. The man was tall, sharply dressed, and laughing at something Emily said. She looked carefree, more relaxed than Ryan had seen her in months. The man leaned in, kissed her on the cheek, and whispered something in her ear before they walked back inside together. Ryan felt like the air had been knocked out of him. He wanted to storm into the hotel, demand answers, and make a scene. But instead, he sat frozen, a mix of disbelief, anger, and heartbreak swirling in his chest. When he finally drove home, he felt numb. He poured himself a drink and stared out the window, replaying the scene over and over. The woman he'd married, the one he'd trusted with his heart, was now a stranger. The next day, Ryan confided in his best friend, Mark. They met at a diner on the outskirts of town, far from where Emily or anyone they knew might see them. Mark, a former college roommate and now a firefighter, had always been a steady presence in Ryan's life. He listened intently as Ryan recounted everything, the late nights, the cologne, the hotel. "Damn, man," Mark said, shaking his head. "That's rough. But you need to confront her. You can't keep letting this eat you alive." "I don't know if I'm ready," Ryan admitted, stirring his coffee absently. "What if she denies it? What if I'm wrong?" "Ryan, you're not wrong," Mark said firmly. "You saw her with your own eyes. The question isn't whether it's happening, it's what you're going to do about it." Ryan spent the next few days oscillating between anger and denial. He couldn't bring himself to confront Emily, afraid of what her response might be. Instead, he started paying closer attention, small things he might have overlooked before suddenly felt glaring. The next evening, Emily came home later than usual. She barely mumbled a greeting and headed straight for the shower. While she was in the bathroom, Ryan noticed her phone on the counter. He hesitated, his hands trembling, before picking it up. He scrolled through her messages, but there was nothing unusual. Still, something felt off. It wasn't just the absence of incriminating evidence, it was the absence of anything personal. Conversations with friends, family, even him, were minimal, like she was keeping herself distant from everyone. When Emily stepped out of the bathroom, she found Ryan in the living room, staring blankly at the TV. She gave him a quick peck on the cheek and went to bed without a word. Ryan stayed up, his thoughts racing. By morning, he had made up his mind. That day, while Emily was at work, Ryan packed a bag. He couldn't stay in the apartment, not with the weight of suspicion and heartbreak hanging over him. He called Mark. "You sure about this?" Mark asked when Ryan explained his plan to leave. "I can't sit here and pretend everything's fine," Ryan replied. "I need space to think, to figure out what to do next." Mark didn't hesitate. "You can stay with me as long as you need." Ryan spent the afternoon gathering essentials, clothes, his laptop, and a few personal items. Before leaving, he left a note on the fridge, "Staying with Mark. Don't wait up." When Emily called that evening, her tone was sharp. "Where are you?" "At Mark's," Ryan said calmly. "What? Why?" "I need some space, Emily." "Space from what?" she snapped. Ryan hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I'll explain when I'm ready. Ryan, this is ridiculous. She exclaimed. You're acting like a child. Just come home so we can talk. I can't do that right now, he replied firmly. For the first time, Ryan didn't waver under her demands. He hung up, leaving her unanswered questions hanging in the air. The twist, a suspicious message a few days into his stay at Mark's, Ryan decided to check his email. Among the usual spam and work inquiries was a message from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "You deserve to know the truth." Curious, Ryan opened it. The email contained only a single line and an attachment. Check the photos. You'll see who she really is. Ryan's heart raced as he clicked on the attachment. A series of pictures loaded, Emily with the same man he had seen at the hotel. In some, they were laughing at a bar, in others, they were walking hand in hand. One photo, in particular, caught his attention, the man leaning in to kiss Emily as they stood outside a building that Ryan recognized. It wasn't just any hotel, it was the Regent, an upscale place known for hosting private events and business conferences. Ryan's hands shook as he stared at the images. Who had sent these? And why? He forwarded the email to Mark, who called him within minutes. Ryan, this is serious. Someone's trying to help you, or mess with you. Either way, you can't ignore this. I know, Ryan said quietly. I need answers. Ryan sat with the photos open on his laptop, his emotions teetering between anger and heartbreak. He couldn't figure out who had sent the email or why they would care about his situation. But one thing was clear, he needed answers from Emily. That evening, Ryan stayed up, rehearsing what he would say when he finally confronted her. His thoughts spiraled into dark corners. How long had this been going on? Did she ever care about their marriage? Could he even believe anything she said at this point? The next morning, Mark found Ryan pacing the kitchen. You can't let her keep controlling the narrative, Mark said firmly. She needs to explain herself, or you'll never have closure. Ryan nodded, though the thought of facing Emily made his stomach churn. That evening, Ryan returned to the apartment. Emily looked up from her laptop, startled to see him. You're back, she said, her tone cautious. We need to talk, Ryan said, his voice steady but cold. Emily closed her laptop and leaned back on the couch. Okay. What's going on? Ryan pulled out his phone and opened the photos from the email, holding the screen up for her to see. Do you want to explain these? Emily's face paled, her expression shifting from shock to panic. Where did you get those? She asked, her voice trembling. That doesn't matter, Ryan replied. What matters is who that guy is and how long this has been going on. Emily stammered, searching for words. Ryan, it's not what it looks like, don't lie to me, Ryan interrupted, his voice rising. I saw you with him outside the Regent. I've seen enough to know this wasn't just some one-time mistake. Tears welled in Emily's eyes, but Ryan felt no sympathy. How long? He pressed. 6 months, she admitted quietly. Ryan exhaled sharply, the confirmation hitting him like a punch to the gut. Why? He asked, his voice breaking. What did I do to deserve this? Emily shook her head, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't about you, Ryan. Stop, Ryan said, cutting her off. Don't try to spin this into something it's not. You made your choices. You destroyed this marriage. Not me. For a moment, the apartment was silent, the weight of their shattered relationship hanging in the air. Finally, Ryan stood up. I'll be staying with Mark until I figure out my next steps. Don't contact me unless it's about signing the divorce papers. Ryan, wait, Emily started, but he was already walking toward the door. Ryan spent the next few days in a haze. He avoided Emily's calls and focused on the practicalities of moving forward. With Mark's help, he contacted a divorce lawyer and began the process of legally ending their marriage. One afternoon, Ryan received another email from the same unknown sender. This time, the subject line read, "You're not the only one." The attachment contained photos of Emily's lover with yet another woman, this one wearing an engagement ring. The man wasn't just having an affair with Emily, he was engaged to someone else. Ryan forwarded the email to Mark, who called him immediately. "Man, this just keeps getting messy," Mark said. "What are you going to do with this?" Ryan stared at the photos, his emotions conflicted. He didn't want to get involved in the man's personal life, but part of him felt the other woman deserved to know the truth. After a sleepless night, Ryan decided to send the photos anonymously. He created a new email address and attached the images with a brief message, "I thought you should know what's happening behind your back. I've been in your position, it's better to know the truth." With the email sent, Ryan felt a strange sense of closure, not just with Emily, but with the entire situation. He began focusing on his future, throwing himself into work and making plans to move to another city. One evening, Mark suggested they go to Copper Barrel, the bar where Emily had claimed to spend so many of her nights. Ryan hesitated but eventually agreed, wanting to reclaim the space for himself. As they sat at the bar, a woman approached, her confident smile catching Ryan off guard. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, holding up her glass. Ryan glanced at Mark, who grinned and gave a subtle nod. "Sure," Ryan said, gesturing to the empty seat. The woman introduced herself as Jessica, a freelance journalist who had recently moved to Austin. They struck up a conversation about work, travel, and their favorite local spots. For the first time in months, Ryan found himself smiling genuinely, the weight of the past beginning to lift. Over the next few weeks, Ryan began to feel like himself again. His conversations with Jessica at Copper Barrel turned into a series of casual meetups, where they bonded over their shared love of storytelling and creative pursuits. She had a natural curiosity that put Ryan at ease, and for the first time, he found himself opening up about his experiences, not just with Emily, but his own struggles to rebuild his life. Jessica listened without judgment, her own stories of moving to Austin and navigating a freelance career reminding Ryan that change, while painful, could also be an opportunity. Meanwhile, the divorce process moved forward. Emily had reluctantly signed the papers, though not without a few last-ditch efforts to reconcile. She sent Ryan text messages ranging from apologetic to guilt-tripping, but he had already made up his mind. One morning, Ryan's lawyer called with an update. "Good news," she said. "The paperwork is finalized. You're officially divorced." Ryan thanked her and hung up, staring out the window of Mark's house. The words felt surreal. He was free from the betrayal, the lies, and the life he had clung to for far too long. That evening, Jessica invited Ryan to join her at an art exhibit downtown. The gallery buzzed with energy, the walls adorned with vibrant pieces from local artists. Jessica's enthusiasm was infectious as she pointed out her favorite works, and Ryan found himself enjoying the evening more than he had expected. As they stood in front of a striking painting, Jessica turned to him. "You know, you should put your photography out there," she said. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "Why not? You've got talent, and this city is full of people who'd appreciate it." Her words stayed with him. Later that night, back at Mark's house, Ryan pulled out his camera, a piece of equipment he hadn't touched since his marriage fell apart. He scrolled through old photos, memories of places he'd visited and moments he'd captured. For the first time in months, he felt inspired. Ryan decided to stay in Austin, finding a small apartment near the creative district. He turned one corner of the living room into a mini studio, complete with lighting equipment and a wall to showcase his work. He started attending local meetups for photographers and began sharing his work on social media. The response was overwhelming, with several local businesses reaching out to collaborate. Jessica remained a steady presence in his life, her encouragement pushing him to take risks he hadn't considered before. Their friendship deepened, and though Ryan wasn't ready to jump into another relationship, he couldn't deny the connection they shared. One day, Jessica surprised him with an idea. "There's this storytelling event coming up," she said. "People get on stage and share personal experiences. You should do it." Ryan laughed nervously. "I don't think anyone wants to hear about my messy divorce." "Not the divorce," Jessica said, her eyes sparkling. "The comeback. How you picked yourself up and started over." Ryan hesitated but eventually agreed. In the months that followed, Ryan's photography business flourished. He landed a major project with a local tourism board, showcasing the vibrant spirit of Austin through his lens. Jessica continued to be a source of support and inspiration, and their friendship gradually evolved into something deeper. But this time, Ryan approached the relationship with a sense of caution and self-awareness he hadn't had before. One evening, as they walked along the Colorado River, Jessica turned to him. "Do you ever think about what's next?" she asked. Ryan smiled. "Every day. And for the first time, it doesn't scare me." As they stood there, watching the sunset, Ryan realized that his story wasn't defined by the heartbreak he had endured, but by the life he was building on the other side of it.